Okay, Sergeant Poe.
This time we'll call the Monday, January 10th, 2022 Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. And Ms. Whitten, will you call roll, please?
Supervisor Lewis.
Present.
Supervisor Day.
Here.
Supervisor Ayers. Here. Supervisor McDaniel.
Here.
Chairman Lyons.
Here. And at this time, I'll entertain a motion for the election of a chair.
Nominate David McDaniel.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Congratulations.
Or not.
Okay. All right, now we will have entertain a motion for the election of vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Leslie Harris.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay. Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lyon,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
chair votes aye. Yes. All right, now we will, please join me in standing for the prayer and pledge allegiance. Heavenly Father, as we look forward to another year, we ask you keep our eyes turned towards you as we work to the best interests of the people we serve. We ask that you strengthen us with wisdom and grace as we face unforeseen burdens. We are grateful to live in a country where we still pray at our meetings and we conduct our business this evening. Help us to speak with honesty and integrity. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, for announcements, per the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia Executive Order 72, persons who have been fully vaccinated for the COVID-19 virus are not required to wear a mask. We will hold citizens' comments near the beginning of the meeting. We will do our best to take citizen comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comments. To join by telephone, you may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on Rockridge County Board of Supervisors YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling in by telephone. So for standing committee assignments, we have the Finance Committee, which I would like to have appoint Mr. Lewis and myself to serve on through June 30th, at which time I will step aside and ask or appoint Supervisor Lyons to serve the remainder of the calendar year, if that's okay. Let's see here, Buildings and Grounds Committee. Like to appoint Supervisor Ayers and Lyons. Solid Waste Committee, appoint Supervisor Day and Lyons. Personnel Committee appointments of Supervisor Lewis and Day. We've had the Fire and Rescue Committee in previous years. I'd like to rename that to Public Safety Committee and appoint Supervisor Ayers and Day to that. We've had liaisons to the staff for EDA purposes and to the EDA itself in the past. I'd like to combine those into a standing committee for economic development. And that would be appointment of Supervisor Lewis and myself. And for a new committee this year would be an ad hoc committee, which would be where we need a committee of 2 supervisors. Doesn't really fit into anything else. Supervisor Lyons and myself will handle that. Now we have the consideration of the Board of Supervisors meeting schedule. I believe each of you received a copy of that. Or is there any questions, concerns, comments about that? It does include, I believe, the joint school board meetings held the 3rd Thursday of every other month beginning in January. If there's no questions, concerns, or anything, is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Be my guest.
Supervisor Lyons,
Yes.
Supervisor Day,
Yes.
Supervisor Lewis,
Aye.
Supervisor Ayers,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes. Are there any changes to the agenda? There are a couple just housekeeping items under the appointment section that I'll get to when we get to that section to make a few changes to. Is there any other changes? Any recognitions or presentations? Yes, sir. I would like to take this time and this opportunity to recognize Supervisor Lyons for serving as Chair of the Board of Supervisors for the past 2 years. Your leadership and wisdom has been very insightful to all of us, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Now we come to citizen comments. Comments are welcome this time that do not pertain to public hearings. Public hearings begin at 6 o'clock and comments pertaining to those matters should be held until that time. Is there anyone signed up to speak in person? Is there anyone with a raised hand on Zoom?
No, sir.
Any emails or written comments that need to be presented?
No, sir.
Okay, we have, is there anyone who didn't get a chance to sign up and wishes to address the board? All right, we have the November 15th, 2021 joint school board meeting minutes and the December 13th, 2021 called work session and regular meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review those? Any changes, additions, corrections? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
All right. Supervisor Ayers,
Yes.
Supervisor Lyons,
Yes.
Supervisor Day,
Yes.
Supervisor Lewis,
Aye.
Chair votes yes. All right, now we have the consideration of the school appropriation resolution. Steve?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. If you go to your board docs packet, and you'll see the consideration for the school appropriation resolution. There's 3 of them that are listed that are all new grants. The combined appropriation is $61,817. If there's no questions, the recommendation is to approve the resolution as presented. This was previously approved by the school board back at their December 14th meeting. Since there was no meeting, the second meeting in December, this is now being brought forth this month.
You've heard the recommendation. Are there any questions, concerns, comments? Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Supervisor Day,
Yes.
Supervisor Ayers,
Yes.
Supervisor Lyons,
Yes.
Supervisor Lewis,
Aye.
and Chair votes yes. Consideration of county appropriation resolution, Mr. Bolster.
If you go to your board docs package, you'll see the financial package for consideration tonight. The first item is the memorandum. I'll start with the Commissioner of the Revenue, Mr. David Weitzel. He's got 9 items listed. The majority of the top items are linked to calendar year 2022 tax forms or application forms. So that includes meals and lodging. That is due the last business day of each month. The business license applications, that's due no later than March 1st of 2022. The same date is applicable to the business personal property forms. And then lastly, the tax relief application for the elderly and disabled. Those are due to his office no later than April 1st, 2022. Some ongoing ones include the real estate transfers for 2021, the monthly reconciliation of the DMV report with local records, and then the ongoing assistance to Wingate for the general reassessment. And I will just mention that the 2023 budgets are all being worked on, at least for the locality. Those are due this Friday, the 14th. And so Mr. Weitzel wanted to mention that he's working on his own budget, Commissioner of the Revenues, the land use budget, and also he and I are working on the general reassessment budget again for next fiscal year. If there's any questions, I could take those questions from Mr. Weitzel. If not, the next section is an update from Ms. Travato, our treasurer. There's 5 items listed. The first one has to do with the debt set-off program with the state. And so she has submitted a listing to the state. You can see that it involves 5,784 persons with an estimated tax collection of $1,362,598. The next item is just a reminder that the fourth quarter state income is due on the 18th, because the 15th is a Saturday, and then Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Monday is a holiday. That should be the 17th. And then just a reminder for those that have dogs, dog tag license fees are due to her office on January 31st. And then just as Mr. Weitzel was doing, Mr. Votto is preparing the local budget and then also the compensation board budget for FY 2023. And then she also wanted to mention that there was a confirmation of sale auction or scheduled on the 6th at 11:30. And that is linked to an auction that was held back in the fall on October 26th. So if there's any questions for me that I could relate to Mr. Votto, I'm ready to take those down. If not, we'll go ahead and transition to the line chart. So as I've mentioned in the past, a lot of what you see in the line chart is related to a 3-year look back on what has actually happened in previous fiscal years. So at this point, we were projecting revenues to be above expenditures, and so they are. They are currently $4,610,369. Again, revenues over expenditures. You can see on the line chart that the expenditure line is pretty much in line with what has happened historically. On the revenue line, we are above it. We are $2,045,297 above, again, what the data is indicating we've done in the past. Just some things to look at. I've mentioned this before, sales and revenues are above previous year levels. That's no different in December. So without taking into account any kind of changes with tax rates, our sales tax is up $303,871. Of course, that rate did not change. Meals is $356,365 above last year. And then lodging is $849,686 above the prior fiscal year. With that, I'm available to answer any kind of questions related to the line chart. If there's no questions, we can transition to the appropriation resolution. I did have some errors in what I submitted on board docs. So there's an update that's available on the dais. And there's also an update over here on this desk if anybody wants to take a look at it. So if you were looking on board docs, yep. So you should see an audit, and then a CIP worksheet update, and then the updated appropriation resolution. So the transfer to school fund for $250,000 that's on board docs, that was an error. That was actually done in December. So that is to be removed. The addition on your appropriation resolution that you're looking at is for a Homeland Security grant for $249,500. That's associated with a Virginia Department of Emergency Management grant that was awarded to the Rockbridge County Sheriff's Office back in early November. It is a reimbursement grant, so that means we expend the money, submit the appropriate invoices up to the state, and then that funding gets reimbursed back to the locality. This is initially federal money that has come down from Homeland Security through FEMA. And so at this point, the Sheriff's Office has completed their procurement effort. They've actually ordered the vehicle and they anticipate picking it up in early February. So that's why we're bringing the appropriation to the board now. Actually, the invoices are on the bills list tonight. Some of the remaining appropriation resolution requests are linked to the COVID-19 clinic. As you know, we stopped the COVID-19 clinics over at the former Gordon's building is now done through December. And so the contracted services, the water, sewer, and the office supplies, that's all linked to that activity. And the one thing I missed was the contribution to the fire program funds. And so we had budgeted $77,668. So this is pass-through money. So that's what we had anticipated for this year. It actually came in $4,820 higher than what was expected. So we're just passing through that funding to the volunteer fire agencies. And again, those invoices are on your bills list as well. With that, I do have a request to add a couple re-invoices to the appropriation resolution. Some of these came a little bit later last week. So I've got two invoices that are related to the general fund. One is for $69. The other is for $704.88. Those are both Rockbridge County Sheriff Office invoices. That would adjust the general fund amount from $1,193,679.29 to $1,194,453.27. In addition, we had a COVID-19 related invoice that has come in. And so we have coded that. I'm asking to bring that to the board and code it to the ARPA funding. That's for $2,975. That would change Fund 205 from $1,200 to $4,175. So the impact on the appropriation resolution is that the county bills, it changes from $1,203,449.64 to $1,207,198.62. So the bottom line for total all bills to include the fiscal agent bills goes from $1,416,402.38 to $1,420,151.36. So a lot of changes. I apologize for that. But if there's any questions on what I've communicated, I'm available to answer any kind of questions. With that, the recommendation is to adopt the appropriation resolution with the changes both to the appropriations and to the payment amounts for the bills.
You've heard the recommendation. Are there any questions, comments, concerns? So motion to adopt with the changes presented. So moved. Second,
Second.
Supervisor Lyons,
Yes.
Supervisor Ayers,
Yes.
Supervisor Day,
Yes.
Supervisor Lewis,
Aye.
and Chair votes yes. Now we have the presentation of the fiscal year 21 audit by Robinson Farmer and Cox and Associates.
Sir, so Mr. Suter is updating Mr. Kelly from RFC from a attendee to a participant. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Slideshow, Steve. Just hit slideshow at the top. From beginning, there you go. And James, you are muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Mr. Kelly, let me read through the agenda report really quickly, and then I'll hand it over to you. So the annual comprehensive financial report for Rockbridge County is being submitted to the board for review. It's also been submitted to the state's Auditor of Public Accounts. As you guys know from previous presentations, the responsibility for the accuracy of the data and the completeness and fairness of the presentation, including all disclosures, rests with the government. And so staff, to the best of our knowledge, believes that the annual comprehensive financial report data is accurate in all material respects and has been reported in a manner designed to present fairly the financial position of the county. As mentioned, Robinson Farmer Cox Associates partner James Kelly is on Zoom to present the annual financial report highlights. For those that need a copy, we were only able to get 7 for tonight's meeting, so I will have some further hard copies available this month for the public, for those that are interested. The copy of the annual comprehensive financial report was uploaded back on, I think, December 31st to the county website, so it's been available for several days. So there's no formal action requested. This is just a presentation to get an update on the annual financial report of the county. And then, Mr. Kelly, if you're not able to advance the slides, I can do that for you.
Okay. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Going to do a brief overview of the county's annual financial report, go over the opinions that we issued, look at some financial highlights of both the government-wide and fund financial statements, general fund revenue and expenditure budget analysis. Towards the end of the presentation, look at the Blue Ridge Resource Authority and some fiscal year 2022 considerations. The county did apply for the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievements for Excellence in Financial Reporting. And for the 7th straight year, the organization awarded the county the certificate. So it's a tribute to your Finance and Administration Office that their financial reports exhibit the highest level of standards that the accounting profession desires. So kudos to all involved there. Our audit opinion, what we're paid to do is issue an opinion on whether the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects. We did issue an unmodified audit opinion. That's the highest level of assurance that our profession allows us to give. And again, that means that the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects based on our audit procedures and various testing that we've performed. Also, we're required under government auditing standards to issue a report on your internal controls. In this report, we would let the board know if there are any significant deficiencies we discovered or material weaknesses in internal control. I'm happy to say we didn't find any of those, and there are none to report. We're also required to do certain compliance tests required by the Auditor of Public Accounts in Virginia. Those include budget compliance, procurement compliance, VRS compliance. Again, we had no issues that we were required to report there. Since the county does receive over $750,000 in federal assistance, we have to perform an audit in accordance with the uniform guidance. The 2 programs that we tested this year were the special education cluster and the school board. and also the expenditures from the COVID-19 coronavirus relief fund. As a result of our testing, we found no instances of non-compliance that needed to be reported. The next slide shows it's the balance sheet of the county for the year. These statements are prepared under the full accrual basis of accounting, which is similar to what most businesses use. The governmental activities include the general fund, the Blue Ridge, the county's funds include the general fund, Blue Ridge Resource Authority, and the capital project funds, both the school and county capital project funds. I would point your attention when you review the annual financial report to pages 4 through 15. That's the management's discussion and analysis. And it describes the factors that led to the financial performance of the county for FY 2021 in a narrative format. So it's much more reader friendly than looking at the financial statements and numbers. The county did end the year with a net position of $44.1 million. This is an increase of about $5.3 million over the previous year. And of this amount, approximately $27.5 million is unrestricted. Let's go to the next slide. Let me finish. The governmental activities increased the net position by $3.7 million. The business type activities increased the net position by $1.5 million. This was largely due to the impact of non-operating expenses linked to the landfill closure and post-closure liability estimate, which fluctuates based on sale usage and engineering estimates. The county had net invested in capital assets of $13.2 million for the year. This figure depicts the county's investments in capital assets net of accumulated depreciation and debt related to those assets. The next exhibits in the financial report are prepared on the modified accrual basis. This is the basis more similar to what is used for your budgeting purposes. Under this basis of accounting, capital assets are expensed when purchased and not capitalized. Debt is not recorded as a long-term liability, but rather the expenses are recorded as expenditures when the principal payments are made. Under this basis of accounting, the fund balances for the governmental funds were $36.6 million at year end. This was an increase of $6.6 million compared to 2020. The unassigned fund balance of the county was $25.6 million at year end, and there were unrestricted cash and cash equivalents of a little over $29 million at year end. Graphically, this is shown on the next slide. The funds represented in this slide include the general fund, the county capital projects fund, and school capital projects funds. There was an increase in the unassigned category for the year of approximately $5.7 million, which relates to the increase in revenues over expenditures for the year of $5.4 million. The county has a policy that the unassigned fund balance would be 20% of budgeted general fund expenditures. And the chart you're looking at now includes the general fund operating expenses and the school operating expenses. For the year ended June 30, 2021, the ratio of unassigned fund balance compared to those expenditures was 37.57%, which exceeded your fund balance policy by almost 18%. So, and this ratio has remained pretty consistent over the last 5 years. The next slide shows the statement of revenues versus the expenditures for the governmental funds for the year. You can see in the first column that the revenues exceeded the expenditures for the general fund by $5.4 million for FY21. The capital projects fund was supported by transfers from the general fund for the year to cover those expenses, and the net increase for the revenues over expenditures for the governmental funds was $2.5 million a year. And this does not take into account the debt issuance that the county had in FY21. The next slide shows how the county fared with its budgeted revenues. On the next slide, it would be expenditures. You can see that the revenues exceeded the final budget by $4.1 million. And this is mainly attributable to a $1.7 million positive variance in property taxes, and also a $3.3 million positive variance in local sales and lodging tax. This slide shows how well the county stayed within its budgeted limits. The expenditures were $2.7 million under the final budgeted amounts, or 5.2% less than the final budget. The components of this, the education expenditures came in under budgets by almost 1.3 million. And additionally, the contribution to the Public Service Authority was $716,000 less than budgeted. The next slide shows the revenue collections on the property tax collections for the year. 95.5% was collected for the year under audit, which is an excellent percentage. And you can see the total assessment increased by about $1 million. Exhibit 7, 8, and 9 in the annual financial report covered the Blue Ridge Resource Authority. These activities ended the year with a net position of $1.6 million. Overall, the operating income of $1.46963, and this includes depreciation of $503,472. So a total increase in that position of $1.5 million. Again, one of the reasons for that increase in that position is the change in the estimate for the landfill closure and post-closure liability for the year. The Blue Ridge Resource Authority ended the year with approximately $2 million in unrestricted cash and cash equivalents, and another $5.5 million was restricted for future landfill closure costs. The next slide shows the actual revenues and expenses of the Blue Ridge Resource Authority. As we saw on the previous slide, there was a positive variance of $1.5 million for the year ended June 30, 2021. Finally, the county has received substantial funding from the American Rescue Plan Act. This is going to trigger compliance audit of how these funds are expended in FY 2022 through 2024. Just a reminder that the eligible uses of these funds include revenue replacement for the provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue due to COVID-19 public health emergency relative to the revenues collected in the most recent fiscal year prior to the emergency. They can also be used for COVID-19 expenditures or negative economic impacts of COVID-19, including assistance to small businesses, households, and hard-hit industries and economic recovery, premium pay or hazard pay for your essential workers, and also investments in water, sewer, and broadband, which a lot of our clients are using these funds for. The funds cannot be used to directly or indirectly offset tax reductions or delay a tax or tax increase, and they cannot be deposited into any pension fund. So again, that's going to be a focus of our audits for the next 2 to 3 years. So just a heads up there. And that's the presentation. I'll be glad to entertain any questions that you might have.
Board have any questions or comments? Thank you very much. Steve, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, sir.
All right, at this time, we'll skip ahead to our public hearing for the consideration of the redistricting plan. This will be the first public hearing on this plan. There will be a second one on Monday, January 24th for public input. Mr. Studer?
Yes, since we've discussed this at multiple meetings, I hadn't really planned on a comprehensive review unless the board would like one. Basically, after considering the options, the board selected one of the options to publish for public hearing. That map was published in the News Gazette and the Rockridge Advocate in December and early January, respectively. And that was for public hearing at this meeting, at your next meeting, as you said, on January 24th. The map and the proposed resolution ordinance attached in your board package were also posted to the county website on the homepage. To date, we have not received any, staff has not received any comments. If the board has questions, we're happy to assist. Otherwise, our recommendation is to proceed with the public hearing. And if you would like, I think I can share my screen and pull the map up if you'd like, please. As I can find. Right.
At this time, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone signed up to speak? Mr. Post? Is there anyone online wishing to address?
Almost going to have to go back to.
Well, while you're doing that, is anyone here inside the meeting wishing to address the board on the district plan?
In order to do that, I might have to unshare to go back and look. No, sir.
If there are no comments, then we will close the public hearing.
And again, no action is requested. We'll come back and put it on the agenda for the 24th.
Does anyone on the board have any questions, concerns, comments, anything about it? Topic? Okay, let's go back to consideration of provisional adoption for the FY 23 through 27 capital improvement plan. That's Mr. Bolster, I believe.
So you may recall back in November on the 22nd, the board received its initial presentation on the draft FY 2023-2027 CIP. That was during its regular board meeting. On December 13th, staff communicated to the board that the Finance Committee met on December 7th to review the county CIP. We did discuss a couple updates, and I included that in the agenda report. So the two updates were the Natural Bridge Station Collection Center site. We reduced the FY 22 carryover by $39,216 while increasing the use of fund reserves by the same amount. We also updated the Murat Collection Center improvement worksheet. We reduced the carryover by $3,065 while increasing the use of reserves by the same amount. And so those totals match the FY 22 expenditures and what's available for next fiscal year. So if there's any changes on those moving forward over the next few months, then we will update the board accordingly. And so you do have a copy of the combined CIP, so that's county and school division CIP on board docs. We did make an update late today, and so I don't have the page number off the top of my head. Let me take a look at that. That's page 6 on the CIP. And so that was updated. That was an effort in the northwest quadrant of the county. And the title has been updated to Walker's Creek, Rockbridge Baths area. And so we had a little bit more specific detail in the previous CIP worksheet, and it's now been just generalized. But outside of that one change and what was updated at the December 13th meeting, the CIP is basically the same as what was presented. And so should the board provisionally adopt the CIP, the draft CIP, this will provide a guide to the departments as they plan for procurement and or financing efforts associated with the capital budget development. As I mentioned earlier, if there's any kind of updates over the next 2 or 3 months, then we'll provide that as necessary. So staff is requesting formal adoption of the CIP in conjunction with the operational and capital budget approvals currently scheduled for April 25th. So again, we'll provide updates over the next few months, all targeting to get to April 25th when we adopt the capital and operating budgets for the county for FY 2023. So I'm here to answer any kind of questions that you may have. If not, the recommendation from staff is to provisionally adopt the FY 23-27 CIP.
Key word being provisionally. Is there any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, is there a motion to provisionally adopt as presented? So move. Second?
Second.
All right, Supervisor Lyons?
Yes.
Supervisor Lewis?
Aye.
Supervisor Ayers?
Yes.
Supervisor Day?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes as well. Consideration of the IT managed service provider contract. Mr. Bolster?
Sir, on November 25th, the board approved the issuance of a request for proposals for an information technology managed service provider. The RFP was advertised between October 22nd and November 19th. The advertising included local press and also the county website and then the state's website for procurement, EVA. 3 proposals were received by November 19th, which was the submission deadline. It was reviewed and ranked by an evaluation team that consisted of both county and constitutional officers using the criteria that was listed in the RFP. As you can see in the agenda report, the ranking was Virginia Technology Services first, Proactive Information Management LLC second, and then Virginia Business Systems third. On December 10th, staff negotiated contract terms with VTS that we believe are satisfactory and advantageous to the Rockbridge County at fair and reasonable prices. So with that, there's 2 attachments. One is the contract, and then one is the approval resolution. And so we're asking that if the board is in agreement, that you accept the proposed the Information Technology Managed Service Proposal Contract. And we request that the board authorize the county administrator to execute the contract documents on behalf of the Board of Supervisors and to take any such action or further actions as may be necessary to accomplish this agreement, which shall be approved as to form by the county attorney. And staff is available to answer any kind of questions if there are any.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Supervisor Ayers,
Yes.
Supervisor Lewis.
Aye.
Supervisor Day,
Yes.
Supervisor Lyon,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well. The consideration of Natural Bridge Station Collection Center construction contract.
Okay, so we have one more procurement effort for the board to consider tonight. From November 8th to December 2nd of last year, the county advertised an invitation for bid to construct the Natural Bridge Station Solid Waste and Recycling Collection Center. It was advertised both in the local papers, on the county website, and the EVA website as well with the state. We had 2 vendors submit bids to the county. They were due on December 2nd at 2 p.m. When we opened them, we read them publicly. As you can see, there's a table. And so you've got Randy Hostetter Excavating LLC submitted a bid of $380,900 even. And then Pearson Construction Incorporated submitted a bid of $390,070.58. Staff has determined that the lowest responsive and responsible bid was submitted by Randy Hostetter Excavating. A construction agreement and resolution authorizing contract award are attached to the board for their review and consideration. In accordance with standard procurement policy, if a contract is not reached with the lowest bidder, staff would move to the next bidder and bring a contract back to the Board of Supervisors. So with that, if the board is in agreement, we are asking you all to accept the proposed Natural Bridge Station Collection Center construction contract. And we're also asking that you authorize the county administrator to execute the contract documents on behalf of the board and to take any actions necessary and appropriate to accomplish the agreement, which shall be approved as to form by the county attorney. And so in your board docs package is the agreement and again, the award resolution. And staff is available to answer any kind of questions you may have.
Any questions, comments, concerns from the board? Hearing none, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Okay, Supervisor Day,
Yes.
Supervisor Lyons.
Yes.
Supervisor Ayers,
Yes.
Supervisor Lewis,
Aye.
and Chair votes yes.
Thank you.
You. And we have the little half pasture water monitoring contract.
Yes, back in 2020, the county applied for a DEQ grant for water quality improvements in the Little Calf Pasture River. Partners in the grant included the Natural Bridge Soil and Water Conservation District, the Boy Scouts, Capital Region, Headwaters Soil and Water Conservation District, VMI, and JMU. And there are multiple sub-projects in this kind of overarching project, and one of them is the installation of remote monitoring equipment on the Lake Meriwether Dam and below the dam to record lake levels and downstream turbidity and seeing what the other sub-projects are doing to positively impact. So setting baseline and then monitoring how everything's working. There were some other things, streamside cleanup above the dam, mudflat dredging and seeding, and downstream benthic water quality monitoring. Grant was awarded in 2021. Implementation is now underway. We got paused a little bit by COVID, but one requirement of the grant is the execution of an agreement with JMU that pertains to the acquisition and installation of monitoring equipment and the training and its use. Draft agreement is attached for your consideration. JMU has been in contact with the Boy Scouts Capital Region to survey the installation sites and catalog the equipment needed for installation, and all the costs associated with this will be covered by the grant. And our request is to approve the agreement and authorize me to execute it.
Questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the recommendation as presented?
Yes, so moved.
Second,
Second.
Supervisor Ayers,
Yes.
Supervisor Lyons,
Yes.
Supervisor Day,
Yes.
Supervisor Lewis,
Aye.
and Chair votes yes. Now we have some appointments for the board liaison to the Virginia Horse Center for calendar year 2022. I'd like to appoint Supervisor Lewis to continue with that. For the board liaison to the Chamber of Commerce for calendar year 2022, I'd like to appoint Supervisor Lyons to continue with that. The board liaison for the Economic Development Authority. That's what we were talking, or I was talking about earlier when the creation of the new Economic Development Committee. I don't believe that we need the liaison to the EDA or liaison to the staff economic development at this point. That will be served by the Economic Development Committee moving forward. And either Mr. Lewis or myself will work together to make sure one of us are present at the EDA meetings moving forward. Appointments made by the board. We have the Blue Ridge Resource Authority annual appointments for the calendar year 2022. As you know, that is Supervisors Day, Ayers, Lyons, and myself. Supervisor Lewis, have you confirmed that Mr. Wells will be serving in your? Okay. So is there a motion to approve Supervisors Day, Ayers, Lyons, myself, and Mr. Bob Wells to serve on the Blue Ridge Resource Authority?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right. Supervisor Day,
Yes.
Supervisor Lyons,
Yes.
Supervisor Ayers,
Yes.
Supervisor Lewis.
Aye.
And Chair votes yes. Okay, we have the Rockridge Regional Jail Commission annual appointments. As you know, we have Spencer Suter and Ed Hoskin. And every year it alternates between the town of Glasgow and the town of Goshen. This particular year is the town of Goshen to have a representative, and they have made recommendation for Mr. Jeff Schaefer. So is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I don't know how exactly I handle this, but I'm not 100% on those appointments yet. Does that have to happen tonight? Ms. Huffman?
if you can act on any of them, of course, that would provide enough appointees to establish a quorum with the jail commission, but not all of them have to be acted on tonight.
The terms run through January 15th.
So, yeah, and rather than, I hear what you're saying, but my goal would be is I would just ask if we could hold off on that one till next meeting, if that's.
Would you prefer to hold off on all three
I
or
would, yeah, just so we could do it all at once. I think that would be more efficient
when is the
usually.
jail commission meeting?
Next jail commission meeting is in the morning, and then tomorrow morning. And so, then it'll be what is tomorrow? The second Tuesday? I think it's the second Tuesday every month. So it'd be in February.
So the current representatives could continue tomorrow because their term serves through January 15th. And then at our January 24th meeting, we could approve this so that the representatives would be ready to go for February.
If the board would support me on that, I'd appreciate it. Give me just a little more time to ask some questions.
Anybody have an issue with that? Then we will hold off on the Rockridge Regional Jail Commission. All right, let's see here. The TCO member, Mr. McLaughlin, will no longer is no longer willing to serve. We have received an application from Melissa Hennis, who's willing to serve. Are there any questions, comments, recommendation on that?
I move that we approve the applicant. Serve on the committee.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
My cousin.
So we have a motion, Supervisor Lyons.
Yes.
Supervisor Day,
Yes.
Supervisor Lewis,
Aye.
Supervisor Ayers,
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Community Services Board, Jade Nick no longer willing to serve. Don't believe we received any applications for this. I'd ask that the board, unless you have someone in mind now, that the board seek an applicant for that. Does that have to be by any particular district, or is that just open to anybody?
I don't know who this representative is, but it looks like a. Brandy, are you aware of?
Can we go online and go?
You mean what district she's in?
I didn't know if this
No,
was
a
one
lot
that,
of the CSB appointments are citizen appointees who receive services from the CSB. That's required to be on their board. So I don't know what we're replacing here.
could you just check that and just make the board aware if it's one particular district or if we're just looking for at-large citizen or what the requirements would need to be?
I'll be glad to do that
Thank you.
and put it on the January 24th.
Yes, ma'am, please. Okay, we have the Public Service Authority. Mr. Henney effectively resigned from the board, I believe, January 12th. This board runs, or the seat runs through October 14th. I know there had been some discussion amongst members that, there was a supervisor. At one point, there was a citizen representative, and then there was a supervisor representative. And I know there's been discussions on the board of whether to keep that or not. So the board needs to decide if you want to keep it as a supervisor or if you want to have it as a citizen. We have received a citizen application, Mr. Peterson, willing to serve. So whatever the board chooses to do there.
from my perspective, all due respect to Mr. Pedersen, who previously served and would be a good servant, I have no doubt. But obviously, from my perspective, I think we should remain, we should have a board member on that board. Having made that statement and that thought, in regards to the MSA, I obviously haven't changed my mind since then. And I believe that I'm bringing some communication and some efficiency in that role there. So my sense is that I would prefer to have a board member be on there, and specifically you, Mr. McCain, as the Natural Bridge representative would be my suggestion.
Well, my suggestion would be to have a community member. I think those boards report to the supervisors, and keep putting supervisors on boards. That's putting too much authority on the board of supervisors and not getting enough citizen participation. Nothing against you, Mr. McCain.
Really understand. Ms. Ayers, Mr. Day, you have comments?
Have already stated, I'd prefer to see a member of the board. Communication is pretty much instant. Question is, that member sitting here can answer it right away.
My comments earlier were that we should have a plan one way or the other, what we're doing. This board made a decision to do for the MSA to stick with the board member. I did not agree at the time. That was the board's decision. So I feel that the board did make a decision about a route to go, even though I voted against that, but I support my colleagues in the decision of that time. So I'm kind of in the middle now. I still prefer that we have a plan, and before we get to situations like this, we have already made a decision about it and a protocol for these things. So since by default, we have already done that with the MSA. We have made a decision to have a board representative.
Mr. McCain, are you willing to serve?
If the board wants me to, I'd be willing to. If there's another member that's interested, that's fine too. If you prefer to go the citizen route, I'm fine with that as well. So,
And that board, of course, is district represented, so that's why I was coming after you to provide that service as well. So
I know that that's true. That is that true?
Sure is.
Is that, I don't think that's a district representation.
It is traditional to appoint by districts. It's not mandatory, but it has always been by districts.
So does that mean every time someone from a district steps down, we're going to put a board member in their place?
Right, that doesn't quite work in that particular, only if it's a citizen representation.
In the past, it's just been to have one board member on these other boards and commissions, not.
So I guess what you're saying, Jay, is that he's a twofer. He's
Yes,
in
ma'am.
the
That-
district and our
That is
supervisor.
correct. So as far as tradition and your desire for protocols, I agree. And to me, that meets those needs. I move we approve Mr. McDaniel, or appoint Mr. McDaniel to the Public Service Authority, Rockridge County Public Service Authority.
that's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
No.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
Council.
You can
Since-
vote for yourself.
How does that work?
Or not.
Since it's for me, do I vote?
You can vote.
Chair votes yes. Okay, Rockridge Area Recreational Organization, Board of Directors, Mr. Henney has also effectively resigned from that. I believe this term runs through June of 2025. I don't believe we have received any applications. Is there any?
I'm just talked with Chad Coffey. He is, like you said, he has some suggestions and is moving forward to ask people with your consideration, obviously, since it's your district, your call. So I would ask that we delay a month so that you and Mr. Coffey could.
Okay. Is everybody else okay with that? All right. Everybody, let's see.
Mr. Chairman, there's a couple of housekeeping notes there
Yeah, I'm trying to find that.
after number 24.
First one's the Rockridge Regional Fair and Expo Liaison.
Yes. Mr. Lyons, are you willing to continue to serve as liaison?
Yes, sir.
And
The second one is the Chief of Fire and Rescue, Nathan Ramsey. He has since he's been here, served on the Central Shenandoah EMS Council. He's willing to continue serving. And if he was reappointed, that term would run through 10/1/23. And he represents us well.
is that,
That needs a vote.
needs a vote? All right. We heard a recommendation of Chief Ramsey to serve on Central Shenandoah EMS Council. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And second,
Yes.
Supervisor Day,
Yes.
Supervisor Ayers,
Yes.
Supervisor Lewis,
Aye.
Supervisor Lyons,
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
The thing you've got left is staff reports.
Yeah.
And then board comments.
Has everybody had a chance to review the staff reports? Any questions, comments, concerns? Motion to approve.
I move.
Second,
Second.
Supervisor Lyons.
Yes.
Supervisor Lewis,
Aye.
Supervisor Day,
Yes.
Supervisor Ayers,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes. All right, is there any board comments before we go into closed session? I do believe we have a joint school board meeting on January 20th at 5 o'clock at Maury River. Has that been confirmed?
Yes, sir.
And we have our meeting on January 24th. All right. Now we have closed session issue.
Oh.
Read that.
I move that the Rockridge County Board of Supervisors convene in closed session as permitted by the Virginia Code 2.2-3711A5. Discussion pertaining to a prospective business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community.
We've heard the motion second.
Second.
All right, Supervisor Ayers,
Yes?
Supervisor Lyons,
Yes.
Supervisor Lewis,
Aye.
Supervisor Day,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes. We're now in
Okay,
closed
if you
session.
all will give me a moment to pause the recording and share a screen.
Yeah, but he left already. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's just that couple. Yeah.
I'll walk up over to him.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Volunteer. So, Jesus, one, I think it's just. Well, I just want to check. I just need to check on that, you know.
Okay.
I just want to ask around a little bit, but that's what I did. Yeah. No, that's what I thought. Yeah.